Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Christina, and I'm one of the integration specialists here at RedTeam. And I have Sarah with me to assist with any questions you might have. At the bottom of your screen, there should be a Q&A so that if you have a question, just put it there and Sarah and I will get to it. At this point, one of the items we're going to be covering today is the integration between RedTeam Flex and the Quickbooks Online. And just to provide an overview of what we're going to be covering, we're going to talk about what the integration does in case you aren't aware. And if you've just implemented and thinking about purchasing the integration, this will be a great overview for you. We're going to talk through how to set up this integration, what it kind of looks like on an everyday workflow, and to finish up with some troubleshooting items that might make your life a little bit easier. So one of the things that happen when a client indicates that they want a integration, we send them this great tool. It's a document that's called the RedTeam Flex Integration Instructions. We do advise that you set up your call with us because we are here to provide you the assistance in ensuring that it's set up properly and that everything flows over to the QuickBooks Online the way that you would like. One of the charts that we want you to look at during that initial integration is this that provides the general ledger accounts that connect to RedTeam to QuickBooks, and you want to ensure that the category type is exactly what is here. So you want your revenue accounts to income, your receivables and your payables on the balance sheet, and then your direct materials to cost of goods. Again, we do recommend that you contact us, set up the call, and we are here to assist you. So one of the things that I want to mention, the benefits of the integration, and the biggest one being the elimination of the duplicate data entry. When you have the auto sync from Flex to QuickBooks of invoices, payables, and time, it's providing more efficiency, eliminating that double entry and that risk for errors for that double entry. So we will go ahead and kind of get started on the implementation. And there are actually two ways to connect. And one of those is through QuickBooks and the apps icon, or RedTeam, where we are going for the purpose of the webinar today. And it is the apps icon. As a note, you will need to be an administrator in both QuickBooks and Online and RedTeam, and then ensure that you have the access to get this connected. So when we click on the apps icon, it will bring up all the items that we do have integrations with. And for the purposes, you will see that we are already connected and operational on QuickBooks Online. But if we weren't, you would have this blue button that indicates to connect. So since we are, we're going to go ahead and click on this, and it will provide those control accounts and those items that we are needing to connect to the general ledger accounts in QuickBooks. And this is your initial setup. These control accounts are what I showed in the document that provides the general ledger accounts. Once we connect that initial connection and it becomes operational, it will provide the general ledger accounts. And so these will all be read, and then you will click on, or we will click together on the pencil icon, and then automatically find the accounts payable and then click save. And then at that point, you will be connected. We will continue that process all the way down. Now, there is one item here. It's called Team Player Payment Discounts. And that is something that we do integrate with. But if you aren't using it, you do not have to connect it, set it up or in your general ledger accounts, and leaving it red and unconnected does not hurt anything. That will bring us then down to the payment terms. Payment terms typically are all set up during your implementation configuration, and they will be read. But once you utilize them, as you enter an invoice or enter a bill, at that point, they will turn, and you utilize these, they will turn gray and then move over to QuickBooks automatically. You don't have to do anything. Now, if there's one missing that you want to set up, you can do it on the fly by clicking add, and it'll bring up, the name, the description, the days, whatever you're needing to do. And then at that point, it will push over once you utilize it. But typically, these are all set up, and they will push over as transactions are utilizing these, and that you have nothing to do here. Then under the company divisions, again, they will show as red. If you are not utilizing these, it'll be blank. But if you are, as you utilize the division, it will automatically sync over, just like the payment terms. So these two kind of do their own connecting, and the only time you need to utilize these is if you're adding one that has not been used in prior or set up. We're now to the company credit cards, and these again will be set up with you during the implementation. And as you can see, some have not been used, but some have. And so you will connect these in much the same way as you did the control accounts. We will find your accounts payable, accrued payable, a credit card, Visa, whatever it may be. And as an FYI, say your project manager has Home Depot cards, and there's 4 project managers that have them, and it's Bill with 1, 2, 3, 4, Joe with 5, 6, 7, 8. You only need one general ledger account in QuickBooks for these to push over to, as they will roll into that one account. But you can have them divided up to see who's purchasing what inside RedTeam. This brings us to time and expense codes. And the time and expense codes are for non-direct expenses, such as like a PM goes and buys office supplies, or you utilize, they buy a lunch for their crew, but you're not going to allocate that to the project. These would be those items, and you would set them up and then connect them much in the same way by finding that general ledger account that you want it to flow to, and then it will push over as the transaction is put in. Preferences is basically that. It's preferences that you get to choose whether you want to use project numbers or send the employee time and expense over as a bill. But the main one that we tend to recommend is this one here that we feel our clients should check off as a default. That being that when an invoice is entered into RedTeam, it will stay there till you commit it. Once that invoice is committed, it then goes to QuickBooks, but as a future date. So say we're entering an invoice for 3/17/23, it would move into QuickBooks as 3/17/2024. Once it goes through the approval process inside RedTeam and it's executed, it will then update that date to 3/17/2023 in QuickBooks. It now knows it's ready for payment. So now you've paid it in QuickBooks. That payment receipt is going to come in as a draft payment unless this is checkmarked. If you have this checkmarked, it will come in as a committed status. And what that does, that committed status relieves your accounts payable, other reports inside RedTeam. So it kind of eliminates a second step that if you don't have this, it comes in as a draft. Now inside RedTeam, you would need to go and commit that payment on that invoice in order for it to relieve those payable and other reports inside RedTeam. So that kind of concludes that connection of the RedTeam account, control accounts, and everything into QuickBooks. And as you saw, some of them will automatically kind of work themselves through. The other thing I want to point out before we leave this area is this transaction log area. This transaction log will be empty when you first connect, but because this is our database demo, that it reflects transactions that are moving, whether it's an invoice or a customer, those sorts of things, an expense, those items are now moving over, and you can see that they have moved. As you can see, one had a non-zero balance and it did not move over, and we'll address that and kind of circle around to that later. But also inside here, there is a funnel, and that funnel, if you're looking for a specific transaction that you want to see from a certain date, so you got from to dates, you've got from a source ID, you have selections. You can say, show me all the ones that aired or have been posted or pending. That is where you can sort here. It's a good tool to have. So, not sure if there's any questions here. Sarah, do we have anything?
I am not seeing anything in the chat or Q&A at the moment.
Okay, so we will move on. So now that we have connected, we're going to show you a day-to-day workflow type thing when you're entering invoices for vendors. There's many ways to get to vendors, but for this webinar, we're going to go to companies and then vendors. And once we go to the vendors, we are going to see that I already have this vendor 10,000 volts architect. Inside, I know that I have entered an invoice, and that invoice will be under invoices on that vendor. And it's Joe's test project at Disney World. And that invoice has the project number here. It has that it was this order. The invoice number is 2224, and that we have $10,000. Now, if we scroll over so that you can see, this has been approved. It's gone through the approval process and it has been executed. And it shows under QuickBooks that it has a linked chain, what we call a chain. And that means that it has pushed over to QuickBooks. Now, as you can see, you see the yellow chain links that are unlinked. And part of that is you can see that they're still in draft. They've not been executed. The ones that have been committed and executed have moved over. These that are yellow have not. So now that we see that this invoice 2224 for $10,000 for Joe's test, we're going to go over to QuickBooks and we're going to show that we have this vendor. We're inside vendors, and we're going to show that this invoice moved over. And here you can see inside this vendor, here's the bill, 2224, 10,000 volts, direct material for $10,000. If we wanted to see a little bit more detail, you can open it up and look and see that there is direct material. That's the category. The description was construction signs. You can see that it was Joe's new customer. And you can see that the date was updated to that date we had it due. So at that point, we have this invoice that has moved properly, and we can now go back to RedTeam and take a look at our customer bills. So we're going to go into projects. And once this moves up, I know that we have a progress billing inside this all CMAR 3. And inside this, under the billing tab, you will see that here is the progress. It's the project 06, 01 first invoice, project invoice. And you'll see that the bill is $696,000. There's retainage of $69,600 taken out, and that it has been committed. Again, if we scroll over, you can see that inside QuickBooks, it has pushed over there because it's been committed. It's now pushed over. If you wanted to take a look at that invoice, you can click on the little paper and view this record. And it will provide all the lines that make up that $696,000. So you have concrete and precast, and so that if you wanted to see a specific what this all was made up of, $696,000 and then $69,600 for the retainage. Now we're going to move back over to QuickBooks because we know that it moved over. We're going to see that 10,000 volts. We're going to see that, sorry, I'm getting over here, that we're going to go to customers. We're going to go to CMAR 3, and we will see that invoice for the 295006, the first invoice, progress invoice. You will see the $626,400 because that is what is without the retainage. If we open up that invoice, it will provide the progress payment of the bill of $696 with the retainage of $69,600 for the bottom line balance due to us at this time. So now that we have completed the day-to-day workflow, are there any additional questions now?
I am still not seeing any questions, so I think everyone's following along okay.
Great, great. So as we know, technology is technology, and we also have things that we might do not knowing how the ramifications might be. So the biggest thing that we have for helping you in when something doesn't flow is that we have these areas that you can go to. So if you see this icon at the top for transactions, and it has 5, the 5 means that 5 transactions didn't flow over to QuickBooks. And it will provide these exclamation points. And if you click on that exclamation point, it definitely says unsent. Inside this little yellow, what we call data table, there is this icon that has these dots. That is typically where the error message is. You don't have to open up everything. And what it's indicating is that there is a non-zero balance that we saw over inside the transaction log when we first set up, and I was showing you that transaction log. That being said, this is where something has a zero balance that could not flow over. And if you wanted to find that, you have a RedTeam ID that you can then search further for and more detail by going to this transactions that has a very detailed sort filter. And if you come up here to filter, you will see that you can filter, especially on the QuickBooks one, by what's unsent, what unlinked, what's been linked. You can also go by the IDs up here, as well as if you want to see all that's closed, all that have been voided. It's a great tool. Now, we know that sometimes you don't know what that means, or maybe the description says just didn't move over to QuickBooks. We have this bubble that is red right here for a chat with our customer service team. They are always there from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. to assist you and help you through the process of correcting it. And should it not be, then they will make sure that we get you back an answer. Additionally, we have inside that document that we sent, or we will send to you, one of the last pages provides some of our known error messages, and that is like a duplicate entry or something that the accounting period is closed. And that is one of the most common, and as well as something's been deleted in QuickBooks. So if you've inactivated or deleted a payment term or the transaction by accident, and then you would need to then go back in, uncommit that invoice, and then recommit it, as it says here. So a lot of times you can fix this error prior to even having to contact us. So this is a good tool, and we can get that to you as soon as you want that integration. And that basically concludes our webinar today. Are there any additional questions?
And I am not seeing any questions. We can always leave the webinar open for just a couple more minutes in case anyone has any. But as of now, it looks like everyone's doing okay.
Okay, well, we hope this has been informative, and we hope you have a great Friday and rest of the weekend. Thank you.